What I'm going to be doing today is I have this Continental air-cooled engine right here, and as you can see in the video, I'm going to have some close-ups of it here in a second while I talk about this. It's a very rusty engine, and good chance it's going to be a fair bit of work to get it running, but I'm not sure yet because I haven't dug into it. So this engine caught my eye at the swap meet. It was really cheap. I believe I only gave maybe 20 bucks for it, and it had an air cleaner on it I needed, so I basically bought it for the air cleaner. And I thought the engine looked neat as well. It's just overall the crustiest air cool I've probably ever worked on that wasn't just like parts of an engine. This engine was 100% complete when I got it with the air cleaner and everything. And I needed the air cleaner for one of my other projects I had, so that's basically all I bought it for. Hopefully the footage shows it pretty well, but this thing is just unbelievably crusty. Like everything has like a scale to it. The engine is currently stuck, so I'm hoping I can break it loose. If not, I do have a donor engine over here to my left, and hopefully without much work I can get this one working without any added parts. But if I do need parts, I do have a donor engine right here. And as you can see, this one's a bit different. This is a suction type carburetor Continental, so there's a little tank underneath it, kind of like a 6S Briggs would have, but it's on Continental. And this one's a lot less crusty. It's about normal kind of rust for an old engine you get. This one is loose, so that's why I have it. Just in case the block on the other one or the bore is so bad I can't get it loose, I'm going to have this block as a donor. And hopefully it'll go pretty well. But as for the engine that I'm actually rebuilding, as you can see, it is currently stuck. I cannot get the gas cap off, but the bottom of the tank still has paint on it, so I'm going to assume the inside's pretty clean. This engine has a lot of potential to break loose pretty easy from what I've seen of it, just by the fact of how this rust is. This was just in a really damp environment somewhere for a long time. So as long as the cylinder is just damp rust, I should be able to get it broke loose pretty easy and hone it out and get it working pretty good. But if it turns out it got filled with water at some point and it got stuck that way, then I might have a little bit more trouble with it. But that's what the parts engine's for, and hopefully I can get it by without that. So I guess we'll start breaking into this, see what we get inside that tank and see what's inside of the cylinder. That's the first two things I'm going to do. Get this head off and get this tank cap off and see where we're sitting in terms of quality. And if that cylinder's real bad, I'm not sure if I'm going to just immediately go and work on the other engine's block to get it ready, or if I'm going to try and break this loose or not. So that's highly dependent upon how bad that cylinder looks. So I guess I'll get started and see where I go off. There it is. Gotta have one that throws a fit, don't you? Snapped it off. Well, we'll see how it gets when we get it off. Okay. Let's see what we got. I'm not sure if this is the bottom or the top of the stroke yet either, so we'll see what we get. Ooh. That's great. Whew, that smells too. Well, it's at the top of the cylinder, so that's a good start, I guess. It's not very clean though. It's almost the opposite of clean. I bet it'll break loose just fine though. I've dealt with worse. So I'll get you a close-up of this, and then I'm going to move on to that gas tank. Yeah, so as you can see, there's a fair bit of crust in here. It's not great, but the bottom of it's still relatively smooth, and the side is only mild scale, so I think this is going to break loose pretty easy. And then the valves, the face of this valve here that's open, which I'm going to probably assume is going to be stuck because it's the exhaust, and how all this rust got in here is because I bet this filled with water. But I bet these are going to not take very much to get the seat too, because they don't look that bad on the one that's open, let alone the one that's closed. So I'm not sure where this is in the stroke. I'm going to say if I back it off, I'm hoping it's going to go push this one down and not try and open this one, because I suspect this valve is going to be stuck, and I don't want to break any of the components to that trying to knock this loose. I will, before I move on to the next step, back you guys up a little bit and get a piece of slug on here and tap on it and see if it moves real easy, because I am kind of interested to know if this is going to break loose easy or not, because it looks like it has potential to. When beating on a cylinder on the top of a piston on an engine, always try and find a slug that's about the same size as your bore, so you don't have a risk of breaking through the head of your piston. So I'm going to give her a few whacks and see what we get. It moved just a slight little bit, so I'll give her a few more. Oh yeah, she's moving. Yeah, I moved it already almost a quarter of an inch just with those few whacks. So this is probably not going to take very much to break loose properly. Oh yeah. Look at how far that went in already. I wasn't even having to hit that very hard because I don't have this rigidly mounted or nothing. So it didn't take very much at all. I ain't gonna need to replace this block then. That's good. That's a good start to this. So I'm gonna go sit this slug and stuff to the side for now, and I want to see how that tank looks next. And then from there, I'm probably gonna fiddle with this the rest off camera. Save me some time here, because all I'm going to be doing after I knock this down to the bottom is I'm going to clean this cylinder out, flush it out, get all the scale off of it, and then I'm going to try and just grab this crankshaft and push it back up, because in theory, once you hit it down, it should rotate back up. Yeah. So it's already quote-unquote loose, so I'm already doing pretty good. And I believe this ain't going to take very much to get running at this point. So this stud's probably going to take more time than the bore is. But luckily it broke the stud off not flush, so I have a good 1/4 inch thread here to grab onto. Hopefully I can work that loose. That stud is in the right spot. I can put some penetrating oil on it and not get the penetrating oil on the outside like I don't want. So hopefully that stud comes out pretty easy, but for now, I'm going to check out this gas tank, and then off camera, I'm going to clean the rest of this bore out. So, some of you might think this looks pretty bad, but really, in the end result, this is a surprisingly good bore for what I was expecting. So, I'm quite happy with how this is looking right now. And from some of the engines I've done before, this doesn't look near as bad as a lot of them. As you can see, the bore below the line where it was stuck at is already smooth. There's not giant scrapes in it or anything like that. The rust on the top is actually fairly minor. And the valves look pretty clean in all extent of things. So I'm quite happy with how this looks. That intake valve though looks a little bit crusty, so I'm a little worried about how it's going to come out. But really I shouldn't be too concerned considering how the bore was. I can't imagine the intake's much worse. But as you can see, that cylinder bore don't look too bad at all. Okay, so what I'm going to try and do with this gas cap is I've tried pretty hard with my hands to get it off and I can't get it to budge. So my first step is I'm going to just get a pair of channel locks and I'm going to grab around it and try and break the crust loose on the inside of it. It could just be the gasket that's kind of melted across and stuck it to the cap, or it could just be rusted that bad considering how the engine looks. And if that doesn't work, I'm going to probably start peeling it off with this screwdriver, which will be the end resort. But hopefully it'll break right loose. So I'm just going to go around and squeeze it. You can already see chunks coming out. Yep. And there we go. I'm going to go grab a flashlight quick and see what the inside of this looks like. The top feels mostly clean with a mild shellac on it. And if there's a bit of shellac on it, it would mean it didn't rust, so that's kind of a bonus to me. And if it ends up having shellac inside of it, I'll just use some E85 and let it soak in it till the next step of the video, and it'll clean it out pretty quick. So I'm going to go grab a flashlight and see what I find. So it ain't a very good image for you, but it's kind of hard to get footage of the inside of a gas tank. I'm going to have this zoomed in post, but for me all you can see is this little speck right here. So I'm going to zoom that in for you guys so you can see it a little bit better. And as you can see, that weird circle shape is the drain hole. And as you can see, it's actually, in terms of rust, clean. But as you can see by all the dark stuff, it has a pretty bad shellac in it. And that ain't hard to clean out. I'm just glad it ain't rusty. And that makes this project even better. So this project's going just great. Okay, so I'm going to try and fiddle with this a little bit. I grabbed it with a vice grip just to see if it moved, and it didn't. So I'm going to try and tap on it a little bit and get it to wiggle loose. I'll just spritz just a little bit of penetrating oil on it. I don't want it to get everywhere, but I bet it's still going to try to. And then I'm going to beat on it a little bit to try and help jolt it loose. And hopefully it'll come loose. There we go. Came right off. Gasket didn't tear or nothing, so that's good for me. So yeah, here's the ignition system. It looks pretty good for the most part. Well, hopefully that coil ain't bad because I'm not sure where I'd get this coil. So for now I'm going to move on. So I'm going to leave the back plate and everything alone for now until I get the stud out. I expect with this easy grab angle now, because I can get directly at the stud's probably going to come right out. So I wiped some of the crud off here to get this engine a little bit so there's a little less crud getting in the crankcase, and we'll see how it goes. Well, the camera's battery died, so you didn't quite get to witness the 15 minutes I struggled getting this out. But it did come out. As you can see, it took a fair bit of chewing at it, but it did come out. It was just a lot of working it back and forth for at least 15 minutes, if not more. And eventually I got it to finally come out, so here it is. Okay, so I got the valves pulled out of it. They don't look great. The exhaust looks pretty good, surprisingly, considering it was stuck open. And the intake, on the other hand, was loose. But in the end result, some reason it's really pitted. I'm not sure if there's going to be enough meat left on this intake valve to use it still. So I'm going to go over and grind these real quick and see what kind of valve I have left. The seat for the intake wasn't great either, but I know there's enough meat there that'll be fine. I'm going to go grind this valve real quick and the exhaust one as well, and I'll see how they turn out, and that'll decide if I have to tear the other one apart. Okay, so I got these ground real quick. They don't look too bad, but as you can see on this intake one, that ain't a very good circle left on that, because it is wore all the way to the point that it's running out of head to take off. So I'm not sure if this one's going to work or not. It's currently on the borderline of it, but it's all going to depend on how the seat sits on that valve. If it sits on that and seats good on it when I grind the seats, then I'll be fine. Otherwise, I won't work very good and I'll have to tear apart the other engine. So as you can see here, the intake one cleaned up quite nicely. There's a pretty good seat there now. But if I go up here, you can see that on this exhaust, you see the dark spot on that face there? That's going to be a problem for me, and I would, on most engines, if that wasn't there, this would be great seat, but that little dark spot means there's rust there, and I doubt it's going to seal on that spot. It is a ground flat spot, but it's just that dark, so I don't really quite trust it. So as you saw, I was going between the two there grinding because I wanted to see how they'd turn out, and in the end result they were going pretty well until I went back to work on the exhaust and I let off pressure on my grinding stone and it ended up chattering and it broke my stone. So I'm going to need to resurface my stone and come at it again, and I'm going to keep going until I get rid of that spot. I'm going to need to re-gap these valves pretty badly after this, but they should work in the end. There ain't going to be many more valve rebuilds in this engine's lifespan, though, because those valves are shot at this point. And I can't say the seats are much better, so. Otherwise, the seats look like they're going to be pretty promising. Nothing too bad about them. So, I'm going to get to that, and then we'll start putting stuff back together. Okay, so I got them ground so the exhaust has 0.010 of a gap on it when I have it closed. Ideally, most air-cooled engines have around 0.15 of a gap on their valves, but I'll show you in a second here why I didn't do that on the exhaust. The intake, I got it all the way down to 15, so it's 2 spec on that part, but I just want to show across just how bad this head is. So as you can see, it's not very round looking. I hope that shows up pretty good on camera. It got a good seat to it, but in any normal rebuild, this would not be called kosher. It's a very uneven head. There's no meat left to grind off of it, so it can't even be smoothed out to that point. I have the last grind you could ever get out of this valve on it, and it technically wouldn't be approved by any normal rebuild. But as you can see that these recess a lot more than they did at the beginning of the video. That's just how much meat I had to remove to get these to be good seats in this block. And the reason I could only go down to 10 on the exhaust is, as you can see there, that there's no meat left below the pinhole. So if I would have ground off any more to make more gap, I would have been coming out of the end of this into the actual pinhole. I might have actually crushed it a little bit when I was grinding, so I might have to drill out that pinhole a little bit to get the pin to stay there for the keeper. But it'll work for this rebuild because I'm not planning to work this engine in any way or anything like that. But if this was a normal engine rebuild, this would not be acceptable, and you'd need to either get a new block or better valves. So I'm going to put them together that way in here and see how they work that way. The valve guides themselves are really loose, but that won't really harm my thing. That'll just make the engine smoke a lot. And I suppose now I'll just move on to getting them lapped in and see how well they seat. And hopefully they seat pretty good. So I'm still not getting the nicest surface on this. There's still a spot that doesn't have any actual visible wear on it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get the lapping compound and lap at it some more, and hopefully it'll start resolving it. But for now I'm going to set this one to the side and see how the exhaust looks. And when you're doing this, you're going to want to make sure you cleaned all of your lapping compound out of these, because otherwise that'll scribe a line into your marker, and it'll also give you false readings on how this looks. So I'm going to do this one quick and see how it turns out. So once again, it's doing the same thing. It has a dead spot where it didn't rub it off, and then a whole bunch of nice, good seating. So I'm questioning if it's just because of how wore out that those seat guides are, those valve guides are, that it isn't working correctly. So I'm just going to keep working on these until I get a nice even line that I like on these valve heads and on the seats. And when I'm done with that, we'll move on to the carburetor. So I'm going to just skip you guys to when I'm on to the carburetor and have these done. Okay, so I got the carburetor apart and I was tearing it down and everything, and apparently I never got the camera recording, so you missed all of me tearing it down. So I'm just going to give you an overview here real quick. I got every component out of it besides the bottom jet. So there's a screw jet in here, kind of like the one out of the top of the carburetor. But I could not get it to come out, so I just going to end up leaving it in there while I clean it. I was going to just try and leave this outside dirty, but considering I can't get that needle out, I think I'm going to put this in an ultrasonic cleaner and try and at least give it a slight fighting chance to get it running off of it. The float itself has had some freeze crush going on it, so this at one point had water in it and it froze and it crushed the float a little bit. It ain't the worst I've seen, so I'm going to use that float anyway. I will put it in some kind of fluid and make sure it doesn't have a leak first so I don't have to solder it. But everything else came out okay. The intake itself on the carburetor is quite filthy. So it's really white and crusty because there was water in it at one point. I did get the throttle loose. It was stuck, as well as the choke. They're both loose now. So as you can see, they both work now. The throttle's still pretty stiff, but hopefully ultrasonic cleaning will fix that problem in that. I'm going to scrape the bulk of this white powder out. As you can see, there's a lot of it in here. This is all falling out just since I set this up to film this. And it just keeps coming out. So, since I already missed the first half of the carburetor, I think I'm just going to jump to after I have it all cleaned up and reassembled. And we're going to start reassembling the engine and see where we get on everything. I guess the next step is going to be to see if that magneto works or not, which I haven't even tried to test that, so hopefully it does. Okay, so I got the sediment bowl all cleaned out and put back together. The insides of it look about as bad, if not worse, than the rest of the engine did, so I don't have a lot of faith of this engine running a long time without getting the carburetor plugged up. But that's not a big problem for me, so I'm not too worried about it. It isn't leaking anywhere, which is scaring me a little bit. I'm questioning if I'm getting fuel everywhere I'm supposed to. I cracked the line with the carburetor and the fuel comes out, so I'm assuming it's getting to the carburetor. But nothing's leaking, and that kind of scares me for the quality of this engine. But I'm going to take it for what it is right now and just try and get it running. So I'm going to try and start it with a cordless drill since it has low compression and see what I get out of it. Got a lot more compression than when we started, so that's a bonus. Seeming like it's trying to lose its tune for some reason, which is kind of odd. But I guess if the leaks are going away or coming back or anything like that, it'll change it, I suppose. So. We're gaining a lot of compression. I'm quite happy about that. Well, I suppose that's all I'm going to do for this video. I'm quite happy with how this turned out. I was expecting this to take a lot more work than it actually did. Considering it already runs, I'm quite happy. I'm probably going to take some time off camera to get it tuned in a little better, and hopefully if I run it a bit longer, I'll actually gain some more compression and I'll be able to properly tune it. But I'll take another whole video of this engine in the future here sometime of it just running and a nice overview of it. I'm quite happy that how it turned out. As you can see, most all of the crustiness that I wanted to keep did stay around, which I'm quite happy about. It somehow blows my mind how this gas tank doesn't leak. There's a bunch of scale under here that's kind of wet, so I'm assuming it must leak a little bit underneath. But currently I have gas in it, it ain't dripping anywhere, which is quite a surprise. As of right now, it's gaining more compression than it's losing, so I think my valve job went quite well considering how bad it looked. I really couldn't complain. Currently the only one I think I hear leaking is the exhaust, which that one had a good seat to it, so I think it'll just clean the crud out is what it's doing. The one I was most worried about is the intake, and from what I can feel, it's not leaking out of that one, so I'm not too worried. So, I suppose that's all I want to say for this video. If you liked this video, leave a like down below. If you didn't, I don't think you would have made it this far in the first place. If you want to see more content like this, I try to upload every week or every other week. It doesn't always happen, but it's what I try to do. I normally post small engine videos or hit and miss engine videos. If you have any questions about anything I did in this video, leave a comment below. I'll try and answer it as soon as possible. I respond to every comment I get. So yeah, that's all I plan to do for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. It went very well. I'm quite impressed with what I got out of this thing. It went smoother than I expected. I was expecting this to be at least a two-part video just getting it running, but I already got it running in this video, and that makes me quite happy. So I'll make up another video here in a week or so of it running after I get it tuned up and everything, and that'll be all I need to do with this engine, hopefully. Thank you all for watching. I hope to see you next time, and y'all have a nice day.